We do begin tonight with the news that the NZSIS, as revealed in their interim report tabled in Parliament on Tuesday, has carried out warrantless surveillance. Warrantless. I quote from the report, one authorisation was given under section 41D1 of the NZSIS Act. Now, this was sometime in the second half of last year. So, the crucial question, what is section 41D1? In short, it says a warrant need not be obtained in some situations of emergency or urgency if, and I quote verbatim here, the exercise of the power is necessary for the detection, investigation or prevention of any actual, potential or suspected terrorist act or facilitation of a terrorist act. End quote. Now, given that one such authorisation was given under section 41D1, was there a suspected terrorist act or facilitation of a terrorist act? We've called and emailed the Minister's office, and at 4:57 we received this emailed reply. You may attribute the following to a spokesperson for the Minister in charge of the New Zealand SIS. I quote, "The Minister has nothing to add to the information set out in the NZSIS section 41D authorisations interim report presented to the House of Representatives on Tuesday." We will try and find out more about what's going on here, and once again we do extend our invitation to the Minister to join us on the program and elaborate. 5:09. The Labour Party is calling for an independent inquiry into why thousands of employees have been shortchanged in their holiday pay. At least 24,000 employees have been underpaid, as identified by Labour Inspectorate investigations, and ministers acknowledge the problem could be more widespread. But despite this, the Minister for Workplace Relations, Michael Woodhouse, says he won't be changing the Holidays Act. Here's our political editor, Jane Patterson.
The law change introducing a new way of calculating annual leave was introduced in 2003 under Labour. The current government reviewed the Holidays Act in 2010, but no substantial changes were made as a result. The Minister for Workplace Relations, Michael Woodhouse, says despite the complexity of the law, he's not in a mind to change it.
The fact is, people don't want entitlements to be reduced. The methodology is complicated. Employers, payroll providers will agree that that's the case. But the question is, how do you simplify it without reducing entitlements?
He says it's up to employees and employers to make sure everyone's getting paid correctly.
There's a combined process that could involve employees and employers. Employers obviously have the obligation. Employees want to know that they're getting their minimum entitlements. Unions have a role to play, so does the Labour Inspectorate.
The Minister for Business, Innovation and Employment, Stephen Joyce, is dismissing a Labour Party call for an independent inquiry. He says the Labour Inspectorate is responsible for ensuring compliance. Mr Joyce was asked if it's adequately resourced to do that.
They've been given a significant increase in resource under this government to monitor the employment relations environment. So I actually think they are doing a good job. I think the challenge will be for private companies and other public agencies to make sure that they are able to get their payroll providers and their systems to do it exactly as the law says.
The software company Advanced Management Systems, or AMS, has confirmed it provides the payroll software for IMBI, along with other public agencies and district health boards. It says the Holidays Act is very complex, and some clients interpret the legislation differently to others. IMBI is currently dealing with what it says are significant payroll problems, potentially dating back a decade, but Mr Joyce says he's unaware of any other problems with AMS clients.
But obviously other government departments and other agencies, because there's some health boards and also some tertiary institutions that use that particular payroll system, so I'm sure that they'll be evaluating the way they approach the calculation of this particular leave payment.
In Parliament, Labour's Economic Development spokesperson David Clark asked Mr Joyce if he could give an assurance to doctors, nurses and public servants
that they are not exposed to underpayment problems similar to those that have beset MB.
Well, a couple of things there, Mr Speaker. Firstly, I'm not responsible for AMS. They're more than capable of speaking for themselves. In terms of underpayment, the member has to be a little bit careful because this is a calculation around annual leave, and it's about the calculation of ordinary time earnings versus average weekly earnings. The member, I know, is disposed to hyperbole, but actually this is a widespread but not necessarily large issue for individual employees.
Several large DHBs are clients of AMS, including Auckland and Waitemata. The State Services Commission says DHBs were included in the assessment it has carried out over the past year with state sector agencies through the Ministry of Health. It says no problems with DHB payrolls have been identified as yet. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jane Patterson.
We asked for a representative from the Australian-based Advanced Management Systems to appear on the program tonight. You may be surprised to hear they declined. The Labour Party has expressed concerns that far more New Zealanders have been underpaid for their holidays than the government is letting on. They're calling for an inquiry. Labour leader Andrew Little is with us on the phone now. Thanks for joining us, Mr Little. Is this just politics here, or do you have hard factual evidence to support your belief that the problem is worse than we've been told?
Well, we just don't know, but we know there's been issues in the police department. We know there's been issues at MB. There's now issues in the health sector coming forward. And we know that AMS provides payroll services to a number of private companies as well. So you'd have to say the odds are that this is a much more widespread problem than just has afflicted the public sector so far.
So your sense is, and we've tried desperately hard to ask AMS this, that it is a fault with their software or hardware and it will be consistent everywhere they're operating payrolls?
Well, the same problem seems to have turned up with a number of different organisations that they're providing payroll services for. It's the same problem. So if they are the payroll provider to anybody else, then you'd have to say there's a high likelihood that the same problem is applying. And if it is because the way they are either interpreting the issue or the law or that their system is set up to deal with it, then other employers will be having the same problem.
Okay. The Minister, Stephen Joyce, said in the House this afternoon, and I'm just quoting from Jane Patterson's report, that the problem is, quote, widespread but not necessarily large. That's a fair point, isn't it? That there may be lots and lots of people involved here, but they're not very large sums of money we're talking about, are we?
Well, I think, as I understood his comment, he said it was not very large for the individual people or individual person.
Absolutely.
But it could run, and as we know in cases that have been unearthed, it could be several $100s in relation to an individual person. Actually, for a lot of people, that is a big sum.
Although, what's your understanding of the average? Because $70 has been reported.
I haven't heard an average figure. I heard an interview with a union official on the 9 to Noon show this morning that said of the people that he was dealing with in one company, the average was actually in the hundreds. It wasn't in the thousands. It was certainly in the hundreds. So, it might differ from organisation to organisation, but if it goes back several years, then it could be quite significant.
So we have Australian-based Advanced Management Systems involved here. We have Australian-based NovaPay involved previously, as we all know, in payroll botch-ups. What's going on with payroll systems and why is it going so wrong?
Well, that's a good question, which is why I think it would be useful to have an inquiry into what is going wrong. It would be disappointing if we are at a day and age where payroll providers, and a lot of companies contract out the payroll services, but all of a sudden the law is being applied in a way that suits computer systems and software and the payroll companies as opposed to what is actually in the law. A few years ago, if there was an issue, you'd go to your payroll clerk. They'd know what the issue was. If there was a dispute, you might get that figured out. But you'd sort it and you'd make sure the payroll system was tailored to suit. But when you've got overseas providers and they are overlaying, what is convenient to them with what the law is in New Zealand, it looks like convenience is sort of favouring what the computer system can do rather than what the law actually is.